The purpose of government, according to the preamble of the Constitution, is to secure the blessings of liberty, to create the conditions for human flourishing. What Stephen Wolfe says is totally different from that. He says that the purpose of government is to secure for its citizens their heavenly good, while Stephen Wolfe has a impeccably argued thesis in 487 pages. The one flaw is that he forgets that we live in the real world.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I would like to take this in the direction of engaging with Stephen Wolfe's model in his book a little bit, because you talk about this in your review. He presents this false choice, you call it, between pagan nationalism, or just the secular, I guess, the secular control of the state, or Christian nationalism. Can you kind of dive into how you presented that this is a false choice and there are actually other options available to Christians, not just pagan nationalism or Christian nationalism?
Yeah. What Wolfe, the reason why this is a false choice is because it's rooted in one of the central arguments that he makes in the book. He asks the question, what is the role of the state? And that really is the central driving question of his entire book, all 487 pages of it. What is the role of the state? Now, if we look at the preamble to the Constitution, and the Constitution is the law of the land, highest supreme law of the land, according to Article 6 of the Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution explains what the role of American government is under the Constitution. It's to, provide for the common defense. It's to promote the general welfare. It's to secure to ourselves and to our posterity the blessings of liberty. That's what these and other things are what the Constitution is for. If we look at the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, we see Jefferson's statement that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And Jefferson is calling upon an old understanding of happiness, not a 21st century version. It's very individualistic, very hedonistic, very materialistic. Happiness refers more in a classical sense to flourishing, to thriving of people as they exist in community with others, within societies. So as the individual flourishes, so do the people that he is connected to, in family connections and in societal connections. So the purpose of government, according to the preamble of the Constitution, is to secure the blessings of liberty, to create the conditions for human flourishing. And one of the ways that it does that is to provide for religious freedom, according to the First Amendment. What Stephen Wolfe says is totally different from that. He says that the purpose of government is to secure for its citizens their heavenly good. That's the expression that he uses, their heavenly good. So it's the role of the state to secure salvation for its citizens. Well, if the state is supposed to secure salvation for the citizens, then it makes all the sense in the world to have an establishmentarian type of a government, an established church, because then it's the role of the church, empowered by the state. Then they can fulfill the role of the state, which is to make people, sanctify people, or bring people into a saving relationship with Christ. And that's the biggest place where I depart from Wolfe, is the role of our government. So I share with Stephen Wolfe, and many people on the Christian America side, all the concerns about secularization and the over-sexualization in our culture, and on and on and on and on. I agree with them. I hate it. I can't stand it. And And I also agree with the impulse to recover something
Mm-hmm.
from the past that's been lost. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a good thing to do. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a progressive. Progressives are more oriented to the future than they are to the past. They don't revere tradition like conservatives do. So I'm very sympathetic with the project of trying to recover something, retrieve, like the project of retrieval that Wolfe talks about in his book. But unlike Wolfe, what I want to retrieve is federalism that's in the Constitution. I don't want to retrieve 17th century reformed continental ideas from Francis Turretin to inform our polity. I don't want to do that. I think it's a great thing to retrieve Reformation traditions for the use of the church as it's disestablished and in a religiously free society. But I'm not in favor of a retrieval project if it means imposing Francis Turretin's views of the state upon our constitutional system. That would require the jettisoning of our Constitution, not even the amending of it, the jettisoning of it, and doing something that's completely new. So what I say about Wolfe's project is Wolfe's project actually has much more in common with the left, because what the left wants to do is create a completely radically new utopian system that's also entails jettisoning the Constitution. It's a radical revolution that the left wants, and that's what Wolfe wants. Wolfe is from the right, radical Marxism is from the left, but their methods are the same. So I'm a conservative. I want to look to what we have and breathe a new life into what we have and invigorate what we have, not throw out what we have and come up with something that's never been tried and has no concrete existence in reality. So while I'm very sympathetic with Wolfe in a lot of ways, in more fundamental ways, I'm entirely against what he's proposing.
So would you say that it's, even though Wolfe, his intentions are good, you would say that they're fundamentally unconstitutional and un-American?
I would say that they are contra-American.
Okay.
They are against the American federal project conceived by the founders in the 1780s. Yes.
Got it.
And I was going to say, I thought it was interesting how Wolfe specifically laid out in the book that he wasn't making a historical appeal for his Christian nationalism, which in a way makes it difficult for maybe the less initiated in history or American history to refute some of the points that Wolfe addresses. So maybe you can speak to maybe a young Christian that picks up this book and says, well, why shouldn't the government be working for my heavenly good? Or why shouldn't the government be acting in a more nationalistic way that is for my benefit and not for theirs, when the history of America or the history of liberal democracy has gotten us to this point?
Yeah. Well, the concern about classical liberalism, one of the things Wolfe's concerned about is that classical liberalism has gotten us to the degeneracy of our culture today. And again, I'm very sympathetic with that view, and it's hard to disagree with that thesis, that classical liberalism is a victim of its own success. And yeah, it's hard. It's a hard argument to refute. But the question remains: why would you want to put freedom to death in the name of freedom? So human nature being what it is, fallen, sinful, human nature needs ordered liberty. We cry out for order and we cry out for liberty. Liberty without order is libertinism, just being able to do whatever you want. And, it's in our sinful human nature to say, I want to do whatever I want without any consequences. And wow, wouldn't that be nice? That would be great. Wow, what a world. But that's not the world we live in. I mean, the smallest decision that I make, the most trivial, the most inconsequential decision that I make has consequences. That's the world that God placed us in. It's the world that God made. It's the kind of order that he established. So you have to have some kind of ordered liberty for liberty to be real. It was, I think it was the Greek philosopher Empedocles that said that freedom without order is slavery, and we all know what that's like. And we're Christians. We understand what that means. The reason why we came under the lordship of Christ is because we recognize that in our sin, even though we were doing whatever we wanted, we were slaves of sin. And slavery to righteousness and slavery to Christ is freedom. So all freedom, all real freedom, is going to involve an ordered freedom. So order has to precede freedom. Otherwise, it's not real freedom. But order and freedom have to be balanced. So if you have too much order, you have tyranny. If you have too much freedom, you have chaos. And so the balance has to be struck between order and liberty. And the United States Constitution is imperfect. Classical liberalism is imperfect. But I would submit to y'all that the ordered liberty that is philosophically from the tradition of classical liberalism of the British Enlightenment, informed by Protestant theology, and articulated and put into statute by the Constitution, is the best we've got. It's the best example of ordered liberty that we have. Now, as a conservative, I believe that we live in a fallen world. It's a world that's cursed by sin. Therefore, you're never, ever going to have the perfect solution to all problems. You're never going to be able to have the perfect order. There's always going to be problems. So what you're after is not the perfect. What you're after is the good. Recognizing that the good is not going to be complete. You're always going to have to work the problems. And every generation in American history has had to work the problems that have been presented to the constitutional order that we have inherited. And some generations have been better at it than others. The solution is not to find a utopia, not to put the good to death in the name of the perfect, but to work the problem in a procedural way, deliberative way, legal. It would be nice if it was biblical, but the problem I have with Wolfe's program is that it's utopian. What's concerning to me is that it's such a clean, logical argument. It's so tidy. He's answered every question. And as a logical argument, it's flawless. But there's one problem. And he doesn't deal with this problem in his argument. And that is, it's too good. It's too perfect. And we just don't live in a perfect world. So there's one thing he's forgotten, and that is human nature will find a way to mess all of this up and turn it into a tyranny. The Tsar of Russia was a tyrant. The Kaiser was a tyrant. The Emperor of Austria-Hungary was a tyrant. These are divine right kings. Louis XIV was a tyrant. And they all claimed to be, by the grace of God, king of all the Russias, or the most Christian king in the case of Louis XIV. or the all highest in the case of the Kaiser. They call themselves all these things. The choice of God. I mean, who wouldn't want to live under a Christian prince?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would number myself among those people. I don't want to live under someone who thinks that they answer only to God. And while Stephen Wolfe has a impeccably argued thesis in 487 pages, the one flaw is that he forgets that we live in the real world, and we're never going to have perfect solutions. I hate to keep repeating myself, but that's a progressive impulse, is to find the perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a conservative one. Conservative takes the world as it is, tries to improve on it, tries to mitigate the problems, but recognizes that the world is never going to be perfect. Only God can make the world perfect. What we can do is we can create an ordered, free society that seeks to, as best we can, to mitigate the effects of the fall, recognizing that we're never going to quite get that far.
Hmm.